make sure my body's not the way it is. Oh, and by the way, too, this thing stretches on the case.
Yeah, for some reason I've seen that the case sometimes still gets a little. Yeah, I mean this is so junky and very stable. Let's see what we're working with here. That's the other thing every year I almost forget. Okay, how do I do a new line?
Well, you definitely have a good showing today, Jordan.
Yeah, I mean, I think we got.
Oh, just keep mine too. My phone's live.
Okay, I think we got 90 some odd people.
Yeah, this is good.
Now, are you pretty new?
Yeah, I'd say so. I'm actually using a program called Prism. A friend of mine recommended it, and I'm streaming to YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook. So I am probably the first person to ever stream to Rumble from a Taxpayers.
Now I think I need to go to create post. I'm sure because if I hit live, it just goes to my old videos. Unless I oh yeah, live.
Oh, hold on, you're gonna want to type that.
Yeah.
I probably just like Taxpayers candidate first.
Yeah, I would. I'm just gonna go.
Yeah, you start making this game.
Yeah.
And then do you want me to make the camera angle a little more refined so that way? Okay,
Yeah.
That actually, yeah, maybe just need to tilt it up a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there we go.
I gotta figure out what's the thing loosey.
I think it's thanks, man.
Yeah,
Indian River News, right?
Yep, Indian River News. Oh, here, and Jordan. Here, just in case for some reason. Oh, shoot. I'm right out of business cards.
You know a judge. There's all my kids. You guys want to come up and we'll get started here in a minute. Good morning. I do appreciate you all coming today and bearing with us as we got through our new 48-hour RSVP policy. That is, we're doing everything we can to try and keep our good standing here at Vero Beach Country Club. Last month we overshot our numbers by 20 some odd people, which causes all sorts of havoc on the kitchen staff. So we're trying to be very mindful and respectful of the folks. We want to keep having our lunches here, if at all possible. So it's my pleasure to welcome you all here today. This is our County Commission Candidate Forum. We have all 5 candidates here with us. We have the incumbent Joe Flescher and Elizabeth Siebert, who are both running for District 2 seat. Joann Binford, Deryl Loar, and Tom Lowther are running for District 4. It's currently held by Peter O'Brien, who's not seeking re-election. And before we begin, I'd like to ask Mayor Joel Tyson to lead us in the invocation.
Let's pray. Divine gracious God, we come to you again. Thank you for the privilege of living in a country where we can come together and discuss the business of our society. Lord, we ask that you would be with us during the course of this meeting, that everything we say and do here will be acceptable in your sight. Lord, we come to you today praying for our country. Lord, our country is a terrible mess. We have absolutely no leadership in Washington. We ask that you touch the hearts of our president and his advisors. get them turned around in the right direction, Lord, turning us to being truly one nation under God. Today we pray for those people in Ukraine. Be with them, give them strength, determination, and the weapons they need to drive the invaders out of their land. And now, Lord, as we break bread together, we ask that you bless this food, the nourishment of our bodies, bless the hands that prepare. We ask these things in your precious and holy name. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Joel. And please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I'd like to point out that we have Indian River News here with us, live streaming the event on their website. And we are attempting to live stream it on our Facebook page too, so if you have any friends that weren't able to attend, we should have it available for viewing at a later time. I should have done this earlier. Which candidates are having a lunch? I believe, Tom, you got a lunch, and Joann and Elizabeth. Do you guys want it at the table? Yeah? Okay.
Sure, so
All right, and before we let our county commission candidates introduce themselves, we'll start with opening statements and recognize all the elected officials and public servants and other candidates that are with us today. We have Indian River County School Board Chair Terry Barenborg. Couldn't forget her. That's why I go by alphabetical order. It makes it easier too. Vero Beach Mayor and candidate for Florida House of Representatives Robbie Brackett. County Administrator Jason Brown. Indian River County School Board candidate LaDonna Corbin. Vero Beach City Council member John Catugno. Indian River County Property Appraiser Wesley Davis. Our Sheriff Eric Flowers is with us. Mayor of Indian River Shores Brian Foley. Candidate for Florida House of Representatives Dr. Karen Hiltz. Our tax collector, Carol Jean Jordan. School board candidate, Thomas Kinney. Fellsmere City Manager, Mark Mathis. I believe we have Vero Beach City Council member Bob McCabe. Judge Nicole Menz is with us. And candidate for judge of the 19th Circuit, Group 2, Lithia Mullins is with us. Indian River County School Board member and candidate for re-election, Jackie Rosario. And staying busy this season, we have our Supervisor of Elections, Leslie Swan. Actually, a quick announcement too on polling locations.
I just wanted to make a quick announcement. The Board of County Commissioners has approved the lines that we proposed for our new precincts. So we will have some new precinct boundary lines. We've changed the precinct number, so I wanted you all to be aware of that. You'll be getting a new card in the beginning of June. So tell everyone you know. We want to make sure everyone shows up at the right polling place on Election Day. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I believe we have the Fellsmere Chief of Police, Chief Keith Touchberry, with us. And my pitch hitter for the best invocations you can ask for, Mayor Joel Tyson. I always ask, did I miss anybody? There she is, Laura Moss, County. Sorry, Laura. And Jeff Smith, our clerk of court, is with us too. And Tom Lowther, currently mosquito. I was going to let you talk about that.
No. That has nothing to do with the county.
All right. Well, let's give our county commission candidates the opportunity to introduce themselves with 2-minute opening statements. We'll do it in the following order. We'll start with Joe, go to Elizabeth, Joann, Daryl, and Tom Lowther. So Joe, we can get you the microphone. And Taylor Dingle's going to be keeping track of the time. So we've got 2 very high-tech folders, a yellow one for a 30-second warning, and when he starts waving the red around, your time's up, and you got to wrap it up. And go ahead.
Go. Good morning, and I want to thank the Taxpayers Association for having this. I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank my bride of 33 years, my campaign manager, and Fred Augustine, our director. Now, I want to say that I'm very proud of where we've gone and what we've done in the time that I've had to serve. And I just want to go backward a little bit. I want to talk about our 2 children who can't be here. They're both Air Force Academy graduates. They're captains in your United States Air Force. And they could not be here today, but they were with us in spirit. Let me talk about my background. I was born and raised in Brooklyn. I know you couldn't tell that. With that, I attended several collegiate institutions, and with the culmination, I became a New York City police officer. I worked 1 extra day too many, and it almost was my last day here on earth. We recovered, moved on. I became the manager of at the Marriott Marquis. I was the manager on duty there. That's in the center of Times Square, 2,000-room property. We then relocated down here to beautiful Indian River County. I then went to another police academy and served as a deputy sheriff, a coke deputy, a detective, a hostage negotiator, as well as spokesman for the sheriff. I then ran for office in 2005 and was successful, and I've been your county commissioner since 2006. I'm very proud of what we do, where we've been, all of the commissioners, because this is the greatest place to live. And I'm very excited to continue the process, because if you look on the outside, the world is a lot different than what we have here in Indian River County. Thank you very much for your past support, your present support, and your future support. Thank you.
I too would like to thank the Taxpayers Association for putting on the forum. My campaign is pure grassroots and connecting with you, the voter. Running for an elected office is not an easy task when you have a seasoned politician. I choose to run because I believe I have an obligation as a lifelong resident of this community to take a stand against the continued increase in taxes and the lack of support financially to our first responders. Just to start with Elizabeth Siebert on the ballot, you, the voter, can make the choice to change the future of how your taxpayer dollars are spent. The last time District 2 seat was up for election, it was unopposed. So there was no opportunity for you to vote against the consistent tax hikes over the past 16 years the current commissioner has served. These hikes choke the life out of small businesses and families. I believe in term limits. 3 terms is more than sufficient to serve as an elected official. To do more is to have a career. 5 terms is a career politician. As a lifetime resident of Indian River County, I'm 3rd-generation public servant who grew up with great leaders such as Emily Lloyd, my dad, Willard Wilson Siebert Jr., who served on the county commission 2 terms and was chairman for one of those. My uncle, Charles Henry Walters Jr., sat on the hospital board. They taught me the importance of public service and the term limits to end career politicians' self-serving agendas. I have a master's degree in science, worked on federal grants. Vote Elizabeth Siebert August 23rd and return the commission seat back to the taxpayers, who we know are the best stewards of their own monies.
Do I just start talking?
Yeah, go ahead. And then hand the mic down when you're done.
Sorry, as you can see, I'm new to this. So my name is Joann Binford, and I want to be your next county commissioner. I moved here with my family and 2 young children in 2004. And they're grown up now. They attended Vero Beach High School. My daughter graduated with her master's in forensic psychology, and my son chose a skilled trade in water management, and he lives in Orlando now. With that being said, I have over 35 years of corporate and of combined corporate and government experience. 16 of those years were right here in Indian River County, working for the school district of Indian River County. My background includes working for brokerage firms, electrical distribution firms, semiconductor prototype manufacturing, and working with grants and budgets. The last 6 years of my employment with the school district, I worked as the assistant to the principal, and if anybody knows what that is, you're the right-hand man on the school campus. I handled the school budget. I processed budget amendments and budget transfers. I kept track of any accounts that might have fallen negative and moved money into those accounts. I also managed the Title I budget, UNICEF budget grants, so I have experience working with budgets. Also, I was in charge of the security system. All our schools got a new security system, and we were trained to handle that sensitive data and sensitive data for personnel. My focus is to save taxpayer dollars, to be fiscally responsible and conservative with my decision making. I also want to focus on blue-collar trade. We need to bring trade back to Indian River County. We need to support our blue-collar workers. We have great jobs in high-tech, robotics, technical. Is my time over? Does that mean I'm over?
Yeah, that means you're at 2-minute mark.
Okay, I'm sorry. But anyway, I'm grassroots as well. Vote for Joann Binford, and I hope you enjoy this forum today. Thank you.
Thank you, Joann.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to see a lot of familiar faces. My name is Deryl Loar. Some of you may recognize me from being the sheriff for 12 years. But more importantly, I want to thank the association for having us here today, as well as all of the candidates that are up here with me and the candidates that are in the field, because I can tell you, unless you're a candidate, you don't know how that feels, not to be a wise guy. So I started my career 33 years ago as a Florida State Trooper assigned to the Treasure Coast. Through those 20 years that I was with the Florida Highway Patrol, 10 years into it, I became a captain of the Treasure Coast and covered Indian River, St. Lucie, Martin, Okeechobee, and on the weekends, since I was the junior captain, I was in charge of Palm Beach and Broward County, fortunately for call-outs and things like that. As I moved back to Indian River County many years ago, over 20 years ago, the former Sheriff Roy Raymond, number 9, we call him the Sheriff number 9, recruited me and saw some leadership talent in me and said, I want you to be the next sheriff. So ultimately in 08, friends, I was elected. 12, I was elected. In 16, I was elected. And I chose not to run in 2020 and simply retire. Well, a little unknown to me, I retired at 53, which is too young to retire. Immediately, I've been volunteering with VNA Hospice, and about 8 months after I retired, it crossed my mind that I miss government. I miss helping Indian River County. And I also knew that Commissioner O'Brien was going to be retiring. So at that point, I dove into the race. So we've been running hard ever since. I want to thank each and every one of you for the support that you've given me throughout my career. I love it. I love Indian River County, and I am going to be the right candidate that walks in as the commissioner, knowing the recency and relevancy of anything that's been going on in this county. I certainly do believe that I'm dialed into it. Vote Deryl Loar, August 23rd. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm the other L of the ballot. My name is Tom Lowther. And first of all, I'd like to thank the association for giving us the opportunity to come and speak as well. More importantly, I'd like to introduce my campaign manager, Jenny Meadows, who's keeping me on the straight and narrow path. One person I am missing that is normally here at these functions that we have is my wife of 40 years, Beverly. She's under the weather right now. She's truly my best friend, my business partner, my backbone. And that's where I start. I am a 4th generation Indian River County resident. That is important to me because I actually went to elementary school at Rosewood, Citrus, middle 6, middle 7, Freshman Learning Center, graduated from Beardridge High School. I have been in the public service business for 44 years. I'm a licensed funeral director. My wife and I in 1997 decided to open the first crematory in Indian River County. So we went into business for ourselves, built a crematory. In 2001, we opened a funeral home next door to that, which is the Thomas S. Lowther Funeral Home. I'm proud to say that I am a business owner. I don't work for anyone else, ladies and gentlemen. I know what it means to have a budget. I know what it means to make sure my staff gets paid. More important, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about my 2 kids. I have my daughter who's 38 that's involved in my business, Carrie. I have my son who's 34, who's a licensed funeral director. He's 3rd generation, who's now the manager of my business. But more importantly, Indian River County has always been my life. It's my blood. And in 2002, I decided to run for county commission, and I won that seat, which is this seat that we're running for today. 2005, I was chairman of the board, and I'm back to do it again. On day 1 of being elected, I can start this position running, and being a certified county commissioner, I have the knowledge. I know it from day 1. So thank you, vote Lowther, August 23rd. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Tom. If y'all wouldn't mind handing the mic back down to Elizabeth. She will be up first on our first question, and followed by Joann, Deryl, Tom, and Joe. And we've got a total of 5 questions, up to 2 minutes each for the candidates to answer. Don't feel like you have to use 2 minutes if you don't need it, but that's the most time you have. So question 1, the Indian River Lagoon's deteriorating health has been a growing concern for many citizens. In your opinion, what are the largest threats to the lagoon, and is the current board doing enough to protect it? What actions taken by the current board do you support or oppose? And how would you ensure the longevity of the lagoon if elected or re-elected?
Thank you for the question. I get asked this a lot, and I talk to a lot of commercial fishermen that are like really, they've lost their businesses, and this breaks my heart. But the problem with the lagoon is they don't have the solution. They do piecemeal programs that are not being completed, and it's not actually doing it. As a researcher, if you get paid to do research and you don't get the response you want, that means that you need to go back to the table and you need to find out what the answer is. I don't think that they have an answer to solve the lagoon crisis right at this time. So we keep pouring money, more money and more money into the lagoon without an actual solution. My answer is government should not be handling this. I think private industry does better. And so I believe that the county commission should seek out private industry, which there are companies on the West Coast that are very successful at this, of cleaning up the lagoon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. That's a really good one. I had a meet and greet about a month ago, and a gentleman had brought up the lagoon. And he had mentioned about the inlet. There used to be an inlet in Vero Beach, so it led me to do some research. And what I found was I spoke with the director of research in Florida Tech, is that they're running a program called the Lagoon Inflow. And when I was doing this research, I found out that in Destin Harbor, they created a man-made inlet, and it has been working fabulously for 20 years. So what they're doing, we do have research, and research is important. The problem with research is you have to have data to get the funds. We're looking at $800,000 that they're using to do the data for this. But they want to put a pipeline through Bethel Creek and pull ocean water in and then let it naturally flush out. But before they get to that point, because our lagoon is a beautiful estuary, it has a lot of species of grass. So it is important to do the early on research to make sure when you're pulling in that salt water, you're not going to be killing all the life in the lagoon. So they have a few phases to go, but when I was talking with the director, he was very positive and hoping that in about a 2-year period, we will see something happening. But we also have Harbor Branch, we have the Clean Water Coalition, we have a lot of partners at work, and I'm really proud to find out how much good work is being done. So we're getting there. We've got about 100 years of abuse on that lagoon, and the Bethel Creek spillage that we had did not help at all. So that's the information that I've come up with. Thank you, everybody.
Well, thank you. Obviously, the 22 miles of lagoon that we have in Indian River County is precious. We all know that. I will tell you today that being involved in the county, particularly the county commission for over 12 years as the sheriff, we talked a lot about that. The county is doing a fantastic job on trying to clean up our lagoon. This is not a one-tier situation. We're talking everything from our septic tanks to sewer in the Sebastian area. That's certainly helping. all in the name of clearing up the lagoon, from transplanting seagrass to oyster beds to, more importantly, the Osprey Marsh and the 3 other marshes that the county has generated. The county has one heck of a team. The county realizes that that lagoon and that beach is one of our economic engines, if you will, and they're certainly aware of that. They're tackling it under the leadership of Mr. Brown and prior to him, Mr. Baird. Trust me. In fact, 30% of our impact fees have been dedicated several years ago just to work on the lagoon. 30% of our optional sales tax, So that is a big initiative that the county's taking. The county is taking the lagoon serious, I can tell you. We can talk about an inlet in St. Lucie County, and we can talk about our inlet in Sebastian. Yes, that is an issue because our only inlet's at the north end of the county. That's why this part of the lagoon is in the biggest crises of overall lagoon. But I will tell you that I will continue to learn more about the lagoon, focus on the lagoon, and make sure it's a clean lagoon for our children and our grandchildren. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, in 2002, when I was elected as county commissioner, the lagoon had an issue back then. And then at that point in time, I believe there was a proclamation we did for Sebastian at the time to begin to start to help up in the Sebastian area and generate things that would bring forward. I too agree that the county is doing the best that they can do right now with the tools that they have. You have to have more help, I think, coming obviously from the state government and letting the county do what they need to do, home rule. But more importantly, and what Jordan had mentioned a bit earlier, I have and still am serving on the Indian River Mosquito Control for the last 8 years. I was chairman in 2017 and chairman in 2020. One thing that we have done over the last 2 years with our 29 impoundments that we have hooked up with Florida Tech and have done a snook and tarpon survey over the last year with our impoundments, where we're not, we're letting the water come in and out, we're tagging these fish, and actually it's the tarpon group that's doing it, the snook group that's doing it, trying to learn their habitats, seeing how they begin to do things, and we're beginning to start a program to work on the clarity of the water as well. So not only do you have the county is beginning to look at the lagoon, the mosquito control is beginning to look at the lagoon as well, and I too will vow that elected in August and taking the position in November, I will be first and foremost to be that voice for the lagoon. Thank you.
The Indian River Lagoon, extremely complex. I like what I'm hearing about people knowing about how much we're doing. It's topical. It's the TMDLs that are inside the lagoon, and then the muck on the benthic level. We are doing a lot of work. We are working with the Indian River Lagoon National Estuary Program. We also have, at this time, a lot of it was granted. We have 5 nutrient reduction programs, like Osprey Marsh, Spoonbill Marsh, you've heard of them. We have Egret Marsh, we have PC Maine. If you look outside, if you look at the row of cars, there's 25 cars in a row. That's the amount of solids that we're bringing out in microns out of the lagoon, preventing them from going in. In the meantime, we're doing more septic to sewer conversions as we speak. There are 201 being converted right now in North County. That will probably be finalized in just a few months. It's a long, arduous process. We are doing a lot to remove the nutrients. As far as, I heard something about the opening of the inlet. The Sebastian Inlet is an artificial inlet. We opened it up many years ago, long before we got here. And we have to be very careful because the lagoon is very delicate and sensitive, and we are working continually. And you heard it, we've dedicated a lot of funding towards the recovery of the lagoon. It will be done. It's not a sprint. It is a marathon. But we will have it back because it's very important to all of us, and that's why we live here. Thank you.
Thank you. Joann, you'll be up first on our next question, then we'll work our way down to Daryl, Tom, Joe, and swing back to Elizabeth. The county has recently drafted an ordinance amending aspects of the Children's Services Advisory Committee, notably doubling the current millage cap and funding for children's programs and establishing a full-time executive director and support staff whose salaries would be paid with a new 8% administrative fee. Do you believe our local government should be more involved or less involved in funding nonprofit organizations with taxpayer dollars? If elected, what would you seek to change about the current status quo regarding the Children's Services Advisory Committee?
Thank you for the question. That's a very important question because it affects everyone in the county, all the taxpayers. With government getting involved with nonprofit agencies, I don't agree with a contracted trust. Right now, we offer those services to the Children's Services Advisory, and we have control of those funds through the general fund. Once it becomes a contract, it would be this, for example, this would have been a 12-year contract, and the voters would not have been able to vote within those 12 years if they did not see any results. They would be stuck with the increase in millage. Nonprofit agencies should work as nonprofit agencies. If they want to put in for a grant like they do now through the Children's Services Advisory Committee, that is acceptable. We're offering that. We've been doing that for 20 years. But to make them sustainable through the taxpayer dollars, that is no longer a nonprofit agency. Now it is a government-supported agency with your tax dollars. Now, we do have some agencies that are mandated, state mandated, that we have to operate with, but anything else that's coming in, I think we should leave the Children's Service Advisory as it is. It's the best option for the taxpayers.
And Deryl Loar.
Well, thank you for the question. I actually sat on the CSAC board for 12 years along with Commissioner Peter O'Brien. Very familiar with how CSAC works and operates. And I'll tell you, friends, sometimes we may get a little sticker shock when we start thinking about where those taxpaying dollars go. The fact is this, is the county commission was strong enough in this year to thwart that from getting on the ballot. In other words, it was going to be on the November ballot, and then it would be a taxing district, and you would see it on your trim notes. Thankfully, they did not, and there was some opposition there, so it took a bold county commission to make that vote. But in doing so, realized that, as I sat on the CSAC for 12 years, all of these so-called nonprofits, which they are nonprofits, they would come before our board, our panel. In fact, I think it was 2 weekends a year we would sit and we would vet them. And we already knew they had to show us their progress or their regress in some parts. In fact, many times we defunded them in consistency with the Board of County Commissioners. In other words, we would take our findings to the Board of County Commission. Now, in a community like this, there are some needs that need to be met in different parts of our county. Fact is, when an entity comes to us, very similar as they were to go to the United Way, in fact, we use very similar vetting skills. The fact is this, CSAC was originated as a startup to get a nonprofit up and on its feet, to get that agency moving along. In fact, it has worked. Now, have there been some that come back and ask for adjustments? Yes, but I will tell you, most recently, the county commission, actually yesterday, tightened it up to the point where it's more accountable. In fact, Commissioner Flescher had said some wonderful things yesterday about how to hold the folks accountable, as well as Commissioner Moss. She did the same thing. So it's righted now. It's kind of like Calcutta Drive behind us that's been righted. And I look forward to supporting the CSAC in the current state that it's in. Thank you.
I think in a simple answer, in having dealt with the Children's Services back in 2002 to 2006, it was working back then when the county commission had their hands on it, their fingers on it, and I think that's the way it needs to remain, or it needs to stay that way. And I know even back then when I was on the commission, we had a program for nonprofits who came before us, that they would only get a certain amount of money for, I think it was $25,000 to show us they could do something for 3 years. After 3 years, they're cut off. Children's Services is a little bit bigger than that. I truly believe if you have a strong enough county commission that can stay on top of that, and I'm one of those county commissioners that can do that, we have them right where we need them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will say that just as a housekeeping rule is, we still have an open public hearing. There is another commissioner in the room. Whether we agree to disagree, I want to be all fairness and full sunshine. I will tell you that it seems like just yesterday that we tightened up the ship. And I want to go back to the original Children's Trust. Once again, that Children's Trust was proposed when gasoline was $1.69. Does anybody remember that? Show of hands. Right. Okay, so we're looking at now $5 a gallon if you got to use the good stuff. Okay? And the cost of food and the cost of everything, building. No, it's not a time to raise the taxes. And I want to comment on something else about the high rise in taxes here in Indian River County. We have a mill rate of 3.154. Last year, the previous year was 3.154. There's no rising taxes here, folks. We have the second lowest millage rate in the state. In the state. And it's going to keep on continuing that way. And I have operated conservatively and passionately to ensure that we have what we have, and we will have it at a minimal cost. We are the lowest on the board when you look at your tax bill when it comes out. I assure you. Turn it over and you'll see a different number. There's a mill rate of about 6.154 as well. That's double. Anyway, let's get back to what we have to talk about. We are keeping it in check, and there are services that are absolutely required for the betterment and the safety of the citizens of Indian River County, for the future, the children, and we have to have a certain amount of operational businesses that are not governmental, but governmental supported, because we're required by a state mandate. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Ladies and gentlemen, I was talking about over the 16 years, just to be clear. Taxes have increased over the last 16 years. It's not just the last 2 years that I was looking at. I do want to talk about the ballot initiative and the Children's Trust Fund. I know that there are initiatives in CSAC that need to be handled. Unfortunately, with the Children's Trust, you almost have a special taxing district added. This language was not voted down by anybody on the commission. They controlled that, and they all voted for it. None of them voted against it. The ballot initiative was withdrawn. So you almost had a special taxing district, and it was in this year. So be clear, it was when you had $5 a gallon of gas. And families, it was going to crush the families and the small businesses in the area. Because, $5 a gallon of gas and $5 a gallon of milk, they're having to pick between the two. So I have, with ballot initiatives, I think it's important to ask ourselves 4 questions. I also want to, if I'm your commissioner, I'm going to make certain that there's a voter impact statement on any ballot initiative. When we get to the ballot, we see an initiative, we go, okay, we want to help children, great. That sounds wonderful. If we knew it was turning into a special taxing district and we were going to be taxed, that would be an entirely different ballot initiative. So when I want to ask, number 1, is the initiative asking for additional funds for a redundant service? 2, is the ballot initiative necessary, or is there any other way that can fund the program? And nonprofits can do matching funds and they can raise their own money. Is the language on the ballot clear? Guys, the last ballot initiative was not clear. You were not told it was a special taxing district. And does the initiative explain the economic impact on the constituents? If the ballot initiative takes money out of the pocket of the taxpayer, it should be voted upon. Previously mentioned, with the previously mentioned criteria met. Thank you so much.
Before we move on to the third question, do we want to take a moment, the candidates that have ordered lunch? I think you were about to get a delivery. Joe, do you want your lunch?
I was actually asking for a pen.
Oh, okay, all right. You guys okay to take them, take it home? All right.
I'm good.
All right. So on this third question, we'll start with Daryl, and then we'll move on to Tom, Joe, Elizabeth, and Joann. The rising cost of housing is an issue for many in our county. As our population continues to grow, the demand and price of homes continues to rise. Some have proposed that expanding the urban service boundary and thus the supply of homes might be one way to decrease the cost. If elected, would you be for or against expanding the urban service boundary? What other strategies, if any, should the board consider to ensure our workforce can afford to live in Indian River County?
Well, thank you. And on a side note, 33 and a half years ago when I moved to town, I could not afford to live in Vero Beach, so I had to live in Lakewood Park until I could afford to live in Vero Beach. But the urban service boundary line was developed in 1985, the year I graduated high school. There has to be talk about the urban service boundary line, or the USA as some people call it. Now remember, since our last census from 2010 to 2020, this county has grown by 21,780 people. Now think about that for a minute in a decade. More importantly, in the last, from 2019 to 2020, we grew by 33%, or 7,300 people of that 21,740. So there's no joke the growth is coming, whether it be the COVID, whether it be the way Americans across the country like the way the state of Florida is being ran, could be. Now, with respect to affordable housing, you know, everything is relative when you think about affordable. What is affordable housing? It's 200,000, 300,000 affordable housing. In fact, we had a large builder come before the board about 2 months ago, wanting to come up with some type of affordable housing. Well, and again, kudos to the board for shutting that down, because the fact was the builder was talking about affordable housing being $300,000 a piece. Now, I don't know how affordable a $300,000 house is, particularly with the wages. So for 160,000 some odd population, keep in mind that we only have about 75,000 in the county in the active workforce. In other words, we've got about 95,000 that aren't actually participating. So we only have a 65,000 person workforce of our 160,000. So those jobs, unfortunately, are service-driven jobs. Again, we will continue to work with our chamber, bring in some type of workforce development so we can continue that trend. But as for affordable housing, we're going to have to look at that collectively and understand the rising cost of construction.
Great question, Jordan. That question, Daryl, you and I actually had that last week, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And truly, the answer to the urban service boundary, we have close to 32,000 home sites that are out there. It's what they call the donut hole, ladies and gentlemen. And truthfully, I'm in favor of filling in that donut hole first, and then coming in and leveling off the urban service boundary in increments. So that way, you are going to expand it, but you do it in increments. And truthfully, you have to plan ahead. As I sit up here and talk to you all, I voted on the widening of State Road 60 and 43rd 17 years ago. It's just now getting done. We have to be proactive. We have to look and be aggressive. As I heard a talk that Mark did a couple weeks ago from Fellsmere, boy, they have it going on. And I think as a commissioner, I would be one of your commissioners who would sit down with the city of Fellsmere, sit down with the city of Sebastian, sit down with the city of Vero Beach, as I did when I was chairman in 2005 and met with all these municipalities. And more importantly, with the affordable housing, as I made this statement last week, I would love to sit down with Habitat for Humanity, because they have a game plan. They know how that works. So you find the property that works for Habitat for Humanity, you look at affordable housing, then you begin to work somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's get right to it. Housing is a national dilemma. Housing, workforce housing, affordable housing. It's very costly to do housing. There's a triad here. Property values have accelerated on undeveloped property, and we do have about 31,000 parcels that could be developed. The problem is the price tag is too high. Cost of materials. Has anybody bought a 2x4 recently? Just one? It takes a lot to build a home. And the proposal that we had for the former Gifford Gardens, that came in, this was with us taking county property, the property the taxpayers own, donating it to the system, donating $350,000 to the infrastructure, and to build 17 to 20 homes. The builder came in at about $350,000. That's not affordable by any means. It's not affordable, it's not workforce affordable, it just can't be done. We're gonna have to be looking at some other things. So we're putting out that bid, and the housing will be smaller, tighter, and we'll see if we can get it down to an appreciable number. But as far as the urban service boundary, when I look at us giving free land for development, then we still couldn't get affordable housing. It's just a matter of time. If we do that, that'll be a burden on the taxpayer because we have to supply infrastructure. So we need developer agreements on the onset, which will be discussed at the visioning process that's taking place now, as far as consideration for the urban service boundary. I could support that if it would be relatively inexpensive and cost-effective to provide affordable housing. It's very difficult to do when you're going to offer parcels of property that need infrastructure that's going to cost something, and then expand on it a little further, and then as it gets built, who's paying for that infrastructure? So it can be done. Yes, I would consider it, but we need the proper proposal and examination to expand the urban service boundary. But it's a very difficult task to do, and stay tuned because we are looking at it. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I would not expand the urban services boundary for one simple reason. I believe that we need to hold on to our property and do strategic land buybacks and maintain and reserve the values of our property. I am the only candidate in running for District 2 that's not taking money from land developers. There is a conflict of interest here, and I want everybody in the room to understand this, that there is a conflict. So no, I would not do it. I would not be in the pocket of anybody. I would go ahead and I would look at the proposals that are brought before us. I do believe we need affordable housing for everybody that's in the workforce in this community. I think we can do that in a positive, constructive way. And I think people deserve the dignity of having a decent life if they're working hard in their lives. So Indian River County can't go without their workers. And so we need to be able to help them and assist them in a way that's not going to harm the taxpayer. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Okay, when it comes to the urban service boundary, I don't know why we're trying to focus on the urban service boundary, because we need to bring manufacturing to Indian River County. We're talking about affordable housing, but nobody says what that affordable housing is going to cost. The average person in Indian River County, average blue-collar person can't even get a job over $40,000 a year. Affordable housing for a $40,000 a year person is more around $175,000 to $200,000 for your house. And that's if you can even come up with the 20% to put down on your house. So for me to think about talking about the urban service boundary, let's talk about getting together and collaborating with the Chamber of Commerce, Indian River County, the county, all of the municipalities that we can work with to bring trade here. We need trade skilled labor. We have 100 acres just off of Owslow, which is industrial property that's not being used. We could have a manufacturer there with skilled trade. We need to collaborate with our schools. Get skilled trade here. We need the blue collar people to survive and move up, and they will have a quality of life that they can afford a house. And right now we are at a 40-year high inflation. We are not going to get any type of affordable housing during this time. We need to look at that when we're over this hump. We're going to crash. There's going to be some kind of crash coming down the road. And that's when we need to look at contracts and buying property. Right now, we just need to fix our infrastructure, and we need to make a plan to get skilled labor. We got a high school that doesn't have shop or tech or voc tech classes. We've got a middle school that has free period aid classes. All right, so that's where I'm at, folks. Thank you.
Thank you, Joann. Tom, you'll be up first on this next question, followed by Joe, Elizabeth, Joann, and Daryl. Our association, as you all know, advocates for low taxes, prudent spending of those taxes, and limited government. If elected, how would you ensure that we use our tax revenue more efficiently to reduce government spending? Do you have any initiatives or ideas that could limit the size, scope, and cost of county government?
Great question. I think, and ladies and gentlemen, having been there before, I just want you to realize that these questions are really easy when they come out to you. But when you sit up here at the dais, you do have a little bit of work, you do have a little bit of time to get behind the scenes and find out just where they're coming from. More importantly, in my main crux when I was on the commission before, as I am to this day, is our first responders and our police officers. That's where I feel that most of our tax money should go to, and I can truly tell you that over the last 2 years, with our fire department alone, they've had 300 applicants, 150 have already left in 2 years. Because they get here, they get a job, they get trained, they move away. No different with our sheriff's department. And that was one of the big, my very first meeting of elected in 2002 was to unify the fire department and paramedics. We had firemen that were paramedics, couldn't use their skills. We had an ambulance crew that had paramedics. That took 1.5 years to get that done. But I'm proud to say today, we do have a unified fire department and paramedic system. I believe our sheriff's department is getting back on track to try to put boots on the ground. And truthfully, Jordan, it's kind of a loaded question. I would tell you, having been raised and living in River County, my great-grandmother moving here, my grandmother moving here, owning a clothing store on the beach, being a business owner myself, first and foremost, my number one goal is to keep my costs down, because I'm getting tired of paying taxes to the county, to the state, to the federal government. And I know that feeling. So absolutely, I will look after your tax dollars. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, I want to quote Bill Parcells. What?
Big tuna.
Big tuna. That's right. You are what your track record is. That's all. I have been fiscally conservative. I've been responsive. And I want to tell you that I will continue to do the process, that we will maintain what we have here in Indian River County. And it's very difficult to work the balance, as we work the balance through economic downturn, through COVID, through unemployment, through overdevelopment, through the threat of charter. I have ridden that storm with you. And I assure you that I will ride any storm in the future with the same fiscally responsible and attention to detail that you are a taxpayer. Most of you pay taxes. When you're out there, you expect to have a quality of life. I will continue to do that and do so in a fashionable way because you all love to live here. And there's a whole lot of people wanting to live here. And we're moving in. I believe we had about 1,800 building permits this year. Place is building. And we've got about 6,000 new citizens, and we have 165,000 citizens, and a quality of life that's got to be maintained. And I'll do so in a fiscally responsible fashion and keep the taxes, I'm 1/5 of that decision, to keep the taxes low. But my track record shows where I've been and what I'm doing. And I've never written a check that I couldn't cash. And I'm writing you a check right now. I will be there to keep it low and keep it to grow in the right way.
You need a check? I campaign.
Thank you for the question. How will I reduce taxes and limit government liabilities? I went and I did a public record search and I looked at our legal bills in this county. They are tremendous. We're not only hiring local attorneys for lawsuits, we're hiring attorneys that are out of state. So we need to reduce the litigation and we need to settle out of court. We're also self-insuring for $400,000 per general liability and per workman's comp case. I believe that if we self-insure, we can save a lot of money on attorneys, and I think we can save a lot of money on those cases. I think we need to prioritize spending. I mean, I hear a lot of we're gonna spend on Lagoon, we're gonna spend on this, we need to help the first responders, which I agree 100%. First responders should have Martin County pay plus 5%. But the thing is that it's a lot of spending at once, and it's stuff that's been neglected. So I believe we need to figure out and prioritize how we're gonna spend and do it slowly. And finally, I want to freeze the budget until the economic recovery, until we're through the hyperinflation. We're not helping anybody by taxing them. We're putting people out of businesses. We're putting small businesses, we're shutting small businesses down, and we're crushing families. So that's my plan. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. That is a really good question. How do you reduce taxes? That's always one of the hardest things to do because you have an economy and infrastructure that has needs. As your county commissioner, I would take a closer look at spending capital and see where I could make deferments, reductions, or even cutbacks. The infrastructure does have to grow, and it will grow, but we have to do it smart and delicately. As a county commissioner, I'm going to be parsimonious with your tax dollars. I believe in limited government. I don't believe in increasing taxes to pay for things like charities, I don't even know if I said that right, but nonprofit charities are important because they play a role in our society. But they should be working hard to get the funding. CareNet, we all know who that is. They're self-sustaining, and they have a great program, and they work hard for it. And it's also your free will to choose who you want to devote your funds to. And I wanted to go back and say that's one area I would want to cut back, is making sure that we don't have a children's trust, because we're going through inflation right now, and I can guarantee you if this economy falls, your taxes are still going to be paying into the children's trust. If we had a children's trust right now, if we had an economic downturn, your taxes would still be paying in that. You might be struggling to pay your own bills, but they would still be making their profit, and that money would not come back to us to help us. So the taxpayer money should be used to help the taxpayer, not just an entity. So as your county commissioner, I would be parsimonious with your taxes. I would work with the county commission on the best ways to safeguard how we're spending that money.
Thank you, Joann.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And as many of you know, and hopefully voted for me in 8, 12, and 16, I certainly appreciate that. But my track record clearly speaks for itself. In fact, when elected in November of 08, taking office in January of 09, we all know what happened in March of 09. Mr. Brown, Mr. Baird called me and said, Sheriff, it's time for you to cut $3 million from your budget. I said, $3 million? Well, I've got 522 deputies, corrections officers, and civilians that have to eat. And guess what we did, friends? From 2009 to 2012, and Mr. Brown can attest, we cut that budget every single year, one of the largest budgets in the county, by the way, at that time a mere $55 million, but sounds like a lot of money. But as Mr. Lowther said, public safety is number one. If we can't contain civilization, what do we have? Chaos. And the deputy sheriffs in this county are doing a fantastic job. By managing that budget, I can tell you, when the budget was due on May 1st every year, and the first hearing was in July, I would have knots in my stomach because I fought so hard to get the deputies what they needed to retain them and recruit them. And friends, that's been successful. Sheriff Eric Flowers is continuing that retention and recruiting program, which is awesome. But to answer your question, we are funded and fueled by ad valorem taxes, property taxes, commercial, residential, some grants, I'm talking the entire county, MSTU, and the like, some different taxing districts. Yes, so how do we keep them low? Well, as Commissioner Flescher said, when things are going great, things are going great. Last year, our home value saw, our property tax value saw an increase of 5.3%. I know Wesley Davis is here, and he probably won't sneak out what it is this year yet, but he'll wait closer to July, I suppose. And at the end of the day, that's how we're fueled. That's how we manage it. Friends, I have a track record of managing the largest budget in the county, and not once did I ever go back to Mr. Brown or Mr. Baird asking for money that, oh, I slipped up and miscalculated something. Not the case, friends. I can walk in November and be the best county commissioner in recent years. Thank you.
Thank you. And Joe, you're up first on this question, followed by Elizabeth, Joann, Daryl, and Tom. Like it or not, there's no denying that our population will continue to grow significantly in the future. In your opinion, what are the greatest challenges the county will face as a result of population growth? Additionally, what opportunities might or should the board capitalize on with the expected growth?
Thank you. As I alluded earlier, we're up to about 165,000. The census does not reflect that, but people are moving here by the minute. We ask them to please come in, visit, build, and leave everything you left outside of the county, because we're not going to tolerate it. We're going to keep on going strong, and we're going to maintain our lifestyle here, and we're glad that they're moving in. As far as what we have to do, the main issue here is infrastructure and services, and we will have some concerns with expansion. Fortunately, and we're hoping that the additional ad valorem taxation that is being developed by these home developments will cover the cost of what we need to do. I have to say that we've been very responsive, and we have continued. Again, I just want to look back to all of the downturns that we had to overcome. Not one library was closed. Not one facility was closed. 40 parks maintained. Your roadways were maintained. Lighting was maintained. Water, sewer. We kept on moving forward regardless. And the reason being because you're important. But we have to do so at the same pace as the growth is coming. Again, development pays for itself. Growth does not. I heard something alluded about the support. You know what? I hope nobody was offended, because anybody who supported me, I really appreciate it. And I don't care what your occupation is. I care that you care about the future of this county and where we've been and what we're doing. And I will tell you that I will continue to work ardently to ensure that we maintain what we have here. But the biggest concerns that we have will be taken care of with the incoming folks that are coming, and not your burden. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you for the question. My family's from here, and in the 1970s, I grew up here, and it was a very, very safe place. You could drive at night, no one was on the road, and everybody knew each other. We have expanded and expanded and expanded to the point that we don't know who we're dealing with. Our roads are congested. There are car accidents all the time. Is that going to stop people wanting to move here? Absolutely not. But we do have to manage our growth. We do not need to write permits out every 5 seconds at the permit office for people to build. I understand the concept of expanding the base and building more homes and more homes and more homes, which will build up the county commission budget bigger and bigger and bigger. The problem is all those people are going to require services too. And then it's going to cost us more money. So, it's a situation that we welcome people to move here. We want building, but we want managed building. We want it to be done in increments, not an explosion of building all over. I think that that's part of our living crisis as well, as we just cannot manage the people that we have in this community at this point. We're overcrowded. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. This is a great community, and it is growing. It is growing. But my main concern with this growth, and I'm going to go right back to it, is the quality of life has a lot to do with you being able to have an income, to buy your house, to go frequent the beautiful restaurants that we have here in town. You know, our restaurants do great during tourist season and when the snowbirds come down. If you're a snowbird, I'm sorry. But there's a lot of, lucrative business going on at that time. But then it slows down when the locals are here because we have to work on our budgets. We need to bring trade. We need to have blue-collar skilled workers. I can't stress that enough, because the average salary of $40,000 a year in Indian River County, those are the people that are running this county. They run the county so everybody else can enjoy it. When the tourists come in, you know, housekeepers clean houses, you've got girls working, you know, the retail area, that's not enough money to survive here. And because of the growth, the inflation in housing is going up, and it's crushing the middle class. That's what my concern is this is a beautiful town, and it has a great mixture of diversity of class of people. You've got people that are wealthy, you've got people that are in the middle, you've got people on the bottom, but we don't want to lose the middle class, because this town won't look so beautiful without the middle class. The middle class works hard, and we need to focus on bringing their quality of life up to par. You know, the sheriff department talks about his guys not making enough money, and they're starting salaries. You know, they're also starting in the 40,000s, and they're not making enough money. How do you think it is for all the other people in the blue collar work? There's a lot of skilled trade out there that still needs to be activated in Indian River County. So if we want our community to grow nicely, thank you.
Well, thank you. First of all, friends, we have to understand that the function of government, and we have to understand the planning that goes in from the planning division to each county commissioner being assigned separate tasks, whether it be the MPO board or the taxing or the tourist tax board, all of those things. Let's talk about our 10-year vision plan, our 20-year plan. I think most everyone in here realizes that the county is on top of that, and that is why we have visioning sessions and planning sessions and watching the trends that are coming from the 895 to 900 people that are moving to Florida every day, from the 7,300 that have moved here in the last 2 years, according to the census. So you have to have faith and be comfortable in the county, and I know that I have that faith because we've been through it. We've seen it contract, and we got through that, and I know that we're planning on handling the growth. And as Commissioner Flescher said, yes, we welcome some friends that come down. And by the way, when you come down to build the house, there's this thing called impact fees. Get ready to pay that, and not to be a big shot, but guess what? This is our paradise as well. And that is how that infrastructure continues. It's not on the taxpayers' back, as mentioned. But we will continue to manage the growth in a reasonable way, in a prudent way, in a proven way. And I have all the confidence in the world that as the next county commissioner, I'll be right on board steering that boat.
Great question, Jordan. I'm trying to remember what it was. How to control growth? Was that?
Yeah, what do you think the greatest challenges that the county is going to face as a result of the growth, and then what opportunities might we capitalize on with that growth?
And the challenges are here, and truthfully, ladies and gentlemen, I kind of smile because all these things go right back in my mind in 2004 and 2005 when we were hit with all this large development. And Commissioner Flescher, I hate to tell you, but this was done before you were there. We formed a growth awareness committee. I should say I did because we were caught with all these developers coming in and just reaping the benefits. We formed a growth awareness committee. That committee met for about 8 or 9 months, came back to the Board of County Commission, and we instituted 14 to 15 different land development regulations. Is that still true? Okay, so that's there, right? So I have done that, Mr. Loar. More importantly, is you have to have the intestinal fortitude when you sit there as a commissioner and make those tough decisions. I'm gonna put my sheriff's hat on. In 2006, the sheriff came before us. We had former Sheriff Wheeler sitting on the dais. He was adamantly against any kind of pay raise for the sheriff's department. They filled the room up with green uniforms. These guys are talking about how bad they are. They don't get any pay. They're going to Martin County. They're going to St. Lucie County. Ladies and gentlemen, it was a tough pill for me to swallow. But I voted on a 13% pay increase for these sheriff's deputies because you know what? That barely got them to the point. And I believe that was the last big pay raise that the sheriff's department got, correct?
Not until I got there.
Well, it still wasn't. And I believe to this day, too, looking at the new sheriff's budget, the sheriff is looking to improve road patrol by 10 to 12 people because it hasn't been increased since 2010. Sheriff Loar was there. Vote for a gentleman that you know will get your job done. What you see with me is what you get. Thank you.
You get it?
You got it?
Yeah, I was the guy that approved your budget. Every time, out of the chute.
If you pass the mic down to Elizabeth, we'll make close. Oh, how are we doing on time, Joe?
I'm doing great there. All the time. Well, I have to chair the TDC at 2 o'clock.
You got back up.
There's no backup.
Y'all really cut costs.
We cut everything down to bare minimum.
All right.
But we're operating efficiently. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate you all coming, candidates. It really means a lot. It's a lot easier to be asking these questions rather than answering them. You'll each have 1 minute to make your closing statements. Starting with Elizabeth.
This election is about you and your future. On August 23rd, if you vote Elizabeth Siebert for County Commission District 2, my vision is your taxes will be lower. We can be the model of how to recover, the national model of how to recover economically and socially from the pandemic. Any future ballot initiatives, if I'm on the dais, will include an impact statement that explains to the voter what it means to them. We will tackle our opioid crisis together, which hasn't been mentioned, and reduce the social and economic impact. Through my campaign, I've heard you. I get it. You're tired of career politicians who serve themselves and forget their campaign promises and you the day after the election. I'm a public servant who looks forward to serving you as your next county commissioner for District 2. Choice is liberty. Vote Elizabeth Siebert, August 23rd.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you, everybody, for coming today. This is really important that you all participate like this. My focus is to save taxpayer dollars, to be fiscally responsible and conservative in my decision-making. I believe in limited government. I believe in term limits as well. I don't plan on being your county commissioner for decades. I believe in reducing taxes and avoiding government overreach through special taxing districts, and I want to have collaborative discussions on how to help the blue-collar middle-class people in our county find work and skills. I'm a grassroots candidate. I have no hidden agendas, and I'm not obligated to any special interest groups or unions. Vote for the change you want to see. Vote for me, Joann Binford. Thank you.
Thank you, Joann.
Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, again on behalf of the Deryl Loar for County Commission campaign. I want to thank you for the invite. We certainly had a wonderful time here today. Actually, Tommy and I are friends, and if you kind of heard some of the jokes we were telling each other while we've been sitting up here, we've had a good time. Friends, this is about recency and relevancy. Recency and relevancy. I've been retired for about 14 months, still know what's going on in the county, obviously know how to run a very large agency. Leadership counts, recent leadership counts, retention counts. I trust in you, and you have trusted in me and proven that in the past. In fact, most recently, the fire and paramedics teams publicly endorsed me, which is wonderful because not all the time was I a pro-union person. However, they know and they believe and they support me. And finally, I took an oath 33 years ago to protect and serve. I'm ready to take the oath in November to do the same as your county commissioner. One thing specifically for the taxpayers, I receive a pension already. So literally, I am the cheapest candidate here. I cannot get another pension, and I cannot get the health insurance. So I'm the cheap guy. Thank you, Deryl Loar.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a great forum, and truthfully, as we move forward, this race for me is about my grandkids. I have 3 grandchildren who live here. I want to see Union River County remain the way they see things. More importantly, having been a former county commissioner, I want to let you know that I've overseen the clerk of court's budget, supervisor elections budget, tax collector's budget, property appraiser's budget, board of county commission, and now the last 8 years, the mosquito control district's budget. And I think as you look at a commissioner that's leaving after 16 years, you want someone with experience. Vote Lowther, August 23rd. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. I love working for you. I love working with you. And I want you to know how important it is to ensure that we have what we have. When you look outside the window, you'll see a nice world. But if you turn on the TV, you won't. And I'll tell you that I'm committed to do and continue on. I'm very proud of our entire team. I'm very proud of the candidates as well for having the input. But what you heard was what candidates say. So what I want you to do is, because of my background in law enforcement, is go back to the internet, do your own research, see where it's at, look at your candidates, and then see if what they said is reflective of who they are. And you may even want to do a little background check. I'll be happy to provide my own for any of you here. And I want you to go to flescher.com, take a look at the website, and if you have any questions, just call me. I will come to you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you all again very much for coming to participate. I will mention, I believe Laura Moss put these on the tables. It's a flyer for the Indian River County Land Use Visioning Study. First meeting will be on Monday, May 16th. Highly advise the public show up and be involved in that process. Our future meetings, I know I'm going to be reaching out to the school board candidates. I already have looking at potentially doing that forum in June or July, depending on everybody's availability, trying to find a date that works best for the majority of those candidates. And I will be hoping that we can continue to have our lunches here at the Vero Beach Country Club. Whatever our future holds, we will be sticking to our strict 48-hour guidelines as far as RSVPs go. So please call or email, and you can use our website as well so that we know you're coming and can adequately prepare. Otherwise, thank you all again for coming. Meeting adjourned.